This is really exciting. This is the first time I've spoken in like 2 years, so bear with me. I used to talk at, you may know me from NewCypher. I was a founding engineer there. No longer at NewCypher. I work on Entropy now. Entropy is my own project, so this is our first time talking about it publicly. We're really excited to share it with you, so let's get on it. So today we're talking about decentralized asset custodians. And let's talk about asset custodians first. So you may have heard of people like Fireblocks or Coinbase Custody or even Gemini Custody. And an asset custodian is generally a trusted individual or organization that holds assets for another individual or organization. They store cryptocurrency assets in cold storage mechanisms and typically leverage things like threshold signature algorithms like threshold ECDSA and like multi-party computation to avoid putting funds at risk. This is basically the core principles of how these mechanisms work. They're centralized, of course, as well, and they also tend to offer products that engage with DeFi and the wider blockchain ecosystems. Fireblocks does this. They have things like some DeFi primitives that I know work out okay. And you know, sometimes they offer staking and things like that. Their users are generally institutions as well, and other really ultra high net worth individuals. You know, these are people custodializing, you know, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, or even billions of dollars of assets at one time, and they get to charge extremely high fees because of this. Because an institution generally doesn't care, you know, if they're paying $200,000, you know, maybe a quarter to custodialize that much money. So in short, they're not exactly a crypto native entity. This is a very regulatorily locked in industry. So I get to introduce decentralized asset custodians. This is kind of a novel thing that we're building and working on. And as far as I know, we're one of the first and the only ones in the industry that are actually doing this. I think this is actually my favorite slide. Tag yourself. I am the kneeling soldier. That's me right there. So decentralized asset custodians. What is this? This is a trustless protocol for securely storing crypto assets. Like, I like to describe this as what AMMs did to centralized exchanges. Decentralized asset custodians, or DACs. It's not as fancy as AMM. I don't like the acronym as much. So decentralized asset custodians will do to centralized custodians. It's basically a crypto native analog for cold storage mechanisms that we discussed earlier. You know, they use threshold signature algorithms and other advanced multi-party computation and cryptographic algorithms for that, usually around consensus. I say usually because, as far as I know, what I'm about to introduce is one of the first of its kind. So it's kind of I would say it's a big deal. And so I'm kind of just giving an abstract and general overview of what this is and hoping maybe we learn more as we go on. The difference between this and something like Coinbase Custody is that we're transparent, we're decentralized, and community owned and operated. It's radically inclusive for everyone, regardless of net worth. You know, you don't need to be a decimillionaire or a centimillionaire to use a custody solution for your crypto assets. You should be able to use it if you have 10 bucks of crypto, or if you have $100 million worth of crypto, or $1 billion. Thankfully, we have cryptography, so we can actually do this. So yeah, well, with further ado, Entropy. Please clap. Just kidding. Yeah, so Entropy, as I was saying, is the first ever trustless, and I mean this, trustless decentralized custodian protocol. You do not trust it whatsoever. It's sort of like two-factor authentication for your private keys, except decentralized. I like to say, honestly, it really does feel like a new paradigm for blockchain interaction. We're pretty early right now, but give me maybe a year, maybe two. I bet some of you in this room are probably going to be talking about how you like to use Entropy for interacting with DeFi. We're built on top of two-party threshold signature algorithms. I'll get more into that in a bit. But in short, what I want to say is there is no risk to user funds if the network gets hacked. This is because of two-party threshold signing, and more on that. And it works on pretty much any blockchain. This is because all blockchains generally use the same cryptography, and we're just able to kind of build a one-size-fits-all solutions for most blockchains. Okay, moving on. So what does it do? Basically, anything that you can relate to a centralized custodian, for example, what you use Fireblocks for, or a Coinbase custody, you may have like authorized signers. You may have like you and your organization share a key or somewhere, you know? And you're able to say, oh, this so-and-so gets to spend this much and so-and-so gets to interact with these contracts. Well, we do the same thing, except decentralized. We get to do address whitelisting. So if you want to only interact with Curve, or if you only want to interact with Uniswap or SushiSwap, you can say that. If you want to say, oh, my private key should only be able to spend $10,000 in a week, you can do that. Our network will not assist you in signing transactions that incur a spending limit, that incur an extra amount over $10,000 if that's what you set up. Another thing that's really interesting is sort of this concept of transaction time locks, which is something that we're really kind of interested in doing on day one. Is, you know, everyone's worried, what if my private key gets stolen? Well, in our case, if somebody were to steal like your share of this network and how it works, if somebody were to steal your private key and they try to spin with it, it's going to basically say, hey, you set a time limit. Maybe it's trying to spend more than $100,000, or maybe it's trying to spend your entire wallet. Our network can see that and go, hey, let's make you wait a week before you can do that. And we might need a second authorizer, and that brings us to multi-factor authentication. You know, so maybe we even include your phone in on this. And suddenly, now you have like 2FA. Now, if somebody steals your private key share, it's not going to work. They're not going to take your funds. Now, we get all this, and we realize, okay, well, we need it to be a little bit more powerful. We need to be able to say, it's really hard to continuously write rules and things like this. So we realized it needs to be arbitrary. And that's where we come in with this WASM thing. We want to be able to implement arbitrary programmable rules via WASM. So the idea is, if you're a power user, say like a fund, you know, and you want to be able to say, hey, we only want to interact with these contracts and have this time limits, and who knows, what else? Maybe some, we're going to try to get some oracles on our network as well, so we can kind of get users access to that. So maybe you want to use that in your programming set. So now you can say, you can write your own code and your own rule set for multisigs, kind of, but except decentralized and with custodial. So write it in WASM, deploy it, and now you have a completely sort of autonomous, trustless custodial service. And like I said, all of this is decentralized, and I'm not kidding. This is truly decentralized. It works. This is not a pipe dream. So we'll get into it, the cryptography. We basically use two-party ECDSA. And you might have heard this from Lindell 17, and for any cryptographers in the room. Lindell 17 is the protocol that we're thinking of going with on day one. We're still building some stuff and prototyping with respect to cryptography, but we're going to figure it out and try to see what is easiest for us to move forward as well. So other people are using GG20. So let me be really clear. Two-party ECDSA is not your standard M-of-N ECDSA. Basically, M-of-N ECDSA is when you have N shares of a private key, and you have M signers on that share who agree to sign a message. So for example, you could say 5 of 7. So you could say, well, I have 7 shares, and I need 5 of those shares to sign the same message to produce a signature on a transaction. The problem with using this in a decentralized network is that you have to have a staked amount of assets into the network, and you can never custodialize more than that staked amount, because otherwise there becomes a collusion risk. So there becomes a huge problem there. For us, that's just simply something we can't do. That would not allow us to be trustless. You would have to trust it to some degree, because it can be colluded against. So we settle on two-party ECDSA. What that means is we simply took one of the two parties, and I'll point out here, party 1 and party 2. We simply took one of those parties, and we said, hey, let's turn this into a decentralized network. That's what we did. So now, the logic is really simple. We say, do both parties sign some transaction hash? If they don't, no signature is created. And if they do, a valid signature is created. It's that simple. Both parties have to agree on signing this message. There's no way for you to sign a message that you don't agree with. If I want to spend or trade $10,000 worth of new Cypher token to ETH, or vice versa, if the Entropy network does not agree, does not want to sign that, then the transaction won't be made. If you don't want to sign the thing that the Entropy network wants you to sign, if, for example, there's a malicious actor or something, you won't sign it. It just won't work. This is very similar to the two-man rule, with nuclear weapons, where if you try to turn the key, it requires both people to turn the key. Like I said, again to reiterate, functionally, this means that if the network is ever hacked, the worst case is denial of service, never fund loss. So this is quite novel for us, I think, and we're very excited to bring that up. So that's pretty much it for me. Thank you. I'm Tux. We're hiring. We're looking for a lot of product people right now, as well as some engineers. We have actually a lot of time, 7 minutes left. I kind of ran through this. So I'm happy to answer questions, actually. I know it was a lot.
So is there any question? No, so maybe we'll,
Awesome.
Because we are running after schedule, so maybe we can.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, so we are a little bit behind schedule, so
Sure.
thank you for
Yeah, of course.
catching up.
Yeah,
thank you very much.